Seriously, how did we let these incredible recipes just fade away? Well, today we are going on a culinary rescue mission. We are digging up 25 of the most fascinating, forgotten Thanksgiving side dishes from the 1950s all the way through the 70s. Let's find out what we lost.
That's right, we're counting down 25 of them. And believe me, these aren't just recipes. They are little time capsules, a taste of a completely different era, a different kind of kitchen, and maybe even a different America.
So, let's start with the dishes that were, without a doubt, a badge of honor for the home cook. We're talking about food that wasn't about being fast. No, this was all about patience. It was about skill and the pride you felt making something incredible from scratch.
First up is an absolute Southern legend, cornbread dressing with giblet gravy. Now, the dressing itself was an art form, always made with day-old, hand-crumbled cornbread. But the real test? The gravy. You had to simmer the turkey's heart, neck, and liver for hours to get this deep, rich, velvety sauce. It was a rite of passage. It meant you knew how to use every single part of that bird. And speaking of patience, how about creamed pearl onions? This was a true labor of love. I mean, can you imagine peeling dozens of those tiny little onions by hand, then making a perfect silky white roux from scratch and finishing it all with just a hint of nutmeg? This dish screamed dedication. It stood right alongside other meticulous creations like Duchess potatoes, where you pipe fluffy potatoes into these beautiful little rosettes and bake them till they're golden. These dishes were all about pride. Okay, so from the heartland, let's head to the coasts, where Thanksgiving tables often had some incredible treasures from the sea. You had scalloped oysters, with these plump, juicy oysters baked in cream and sherry under a buttery, crispy cracker crust. It was pure luxury. And in so many homes, especially along the Atlantic, you'd find oyster dressing. Those chopped oysters gave the stuffing this briny, complex flavor you just could not get out of a box.
All right, brace yourselves. We are now entering a completely different culinary dimension. I want you to forget everything you think you know about salad, because we are diving headfirst into the age of the shimmering, the wobbly, and the absolutely unforgettable molded centerpiece.
Oh yeah, this was the golden age of gelatin, and the creativity was just off the charts. You had the glorious molded cranberry salad, this beautiful ruby red ring filled with pineapple and pecans, often crowned with a sweet cream cheese frosting. Then of course there was the infamous green lime Jell-O salad with, cottage cheese and pineapple floating inside. And it wasn't just sweet stuff. There were savory creations too, like the shocking red tomato aspic or the crunchy perfection salad, which was literally shredded cabbage and carrots suspended in Jell-O.
And that was exactly the point. These things were so much more than just food. They were pure mid-century pageantry. They were designed to get a reaction, to make your guests' jaws drop. It was edible architecture, really. Every slice was an event.
But of course, not all the spectacle was homemade. We have to pay our respects to the humble, the iconic, the slightly hilarious canned cranberry sauce. You know that sound, that satisfying schlop as it slid out of the can? The ridges were perfect. They were built-in slice guides. It was a true symbol of the era, where even the simplest thing could feel festive. And that idea of convenience, it brings us right to our next huge shift. In the post-war years, as the kitchen became more modern and time was of the essence, the modern world basically arrived on our doorsteps, in cans, boxes, and jars. Welcome to the age of the casserole.
This slide right here tells the whole story. You've got the old world, the painstaking process of making those creamed pearl onions from scratch. And then, the new world. The bold, no apologies convenience of broccoli rice casserole. You just mixed frozen broccoli, cooked rice, and a whole lot of Cheese Whiz, and it baked into this bubbly, cheesy mixture that one writer called edible lava. It was fast, it was easy, and for a long time, it was everywhere.
The pantry was the absolute hero of this era. Ambrosia salad was basically a 5-minute miracle. Canned fruit cocktail, coconut flakes, and mini marshmallows. Done. A simple squash casserole got a major upgrade with a crunchy, buttery Ritz cracker topping. And then there's the icon of icons, sweet potato casserole, with that perfectly toasted, gooey blanket of marshmallows on top. This was the same family that gave us the legendary green bean casserole. And you gotta be brave for this one, the pineapple casserole, which mixed canned pineapple with sharp cheddar cheese. But it wasn't all Jell-O and canned soup. Running alongside all that modern convenience was a much older tradition, one that went right back to the roots of the holiday itself. These were the dishes that celebrated the simple, beautiful gifts of the autumn harvest. In these dishes, the vegetables were the absolute stars. Simple glazed carrots, simmered in butter and brown sugar until they just shined. Acorn squash, baked in halves until they were super tender, with a little pool of butter and maple syrup inside. And to cut through all the richness on the table, you had rutabaga mash, which had this wonderful, grounding, earthy flavor. Other classics from this family included rich cream spinach, sweet and sour Harvard beets, and even delicate parsnip puree. And for a real touch of class, you might have found Brussels sprouts with bacon and chestnuts. Now this was special. After a blight wiped out most American chestnut trees, finding chestnuts was a huge deal. It made this dish feel like a throwback to another time, a taste of old-world elegance. It was a true holiday splurge. So, after walking through all of these vanished dishes, from the incredibly complex to the instantly convenient, what does it all mean? What does this culinary time capsule actually tell us about who we were?
When you look at it all together, the mid-century Thanksgiving table was a perfect reflection of its time. It was this amazing balancing act, right? A mix of thrift and indulgence, old-fashioned traditions, and brand-new convenience. Every single dish we've talked about tells a small part of that bigger story.
And looking back, you can see these really clear patterns. You see the sheer dedication and the labor of love dishes like those creamed pearl onions. You see the wild showmanship, the pageantry of molds and the Jell-O salads. You can track the rise of convenience through that Cheese Whiz casserole. You even see hints of global influence like when ratatouille had a brief moment on some tables. And through it all, there was the timeless comfort of the harvest in dishes like simple baked acorn squash.
And that really leaves us with one last thought. If marshmallows and canned soup and hand-peeled onions told the story of a generation, what story will the food on our tables today tell about us 50 years from now? What stories are we serving?